We have a check engine light on our G35. Shocker, right folks? Nah, we're all about check engine lights here at Tech Garage. We could have infinite possibilities on our Infiniti, but no worries, we got the best crew in the business. So let's get this thing inside. Welcome to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, folks, we got a great show for you this week. You know, in the Garage Ed segment, we're going to talk about the AC cycle. And in our Keep It or Crush It segment, we're going to dive into that 2007 Nissan Quest. You don't want to miss that. But at hand right now, we have an Infiniti G35 packed with technology. And you know, it wouldn't be Tech Garage, Dave, without a code. We have a check engine light on.
This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, John.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe we should take care of it.
Yeah, it's a P0345, P0345. Now, you guys know P stands for powertrain, C's for chassis, B's for body codes, and U's network codes. So this is a powertrain code, and Dave, it actually fell right on the cam position sensor. It's kind of not reading that cam position, man. Fill us in. What'd you find back there?
You got it. Well, we know that code meant that the sensor is in bank number 2, which in Nissans, or this particular one at least, is on the driver's side. And it also indicated it was also in the rear. So we found that, and it's real easy. It was one bolt, and just give it a tug there. I also unhooked the wiring harness, and there it is. It's that little device right there. And what the cam sensor does, there's a special lobe. We'll show you how it works later, but there's a lobe on the camshaft, and as it spins, it lets the engine know, lets the computer know the position of each of the cylinders. And if it's not working right, the engine will still run, but you won't get maximum performance, and you'll also be down on power, John.
Yeah, and earlier you used a great word. It works in concert with that crank position sensor, and it identifies those cylinders for that perfect fuel mixture, man. We know here at Tech Garage is 14.7 to 1, so that car's going to run optimal. Now, RockAuto.com, they'll hook us up with a sensor. It's pretty inexpensive. Maybe you just want to go ahead and change it, but we're also going to show you how you can test it. There's some ohms resistance we'll do in a little while, and Josh and I, we actually have a demo set up where we can show you some cool driveway tricks. But even more important, on this car here, it's got VVT, variable valve timing, Dave. And this one, the exhaust is magnetic, and the other one is oil driven with a solenoid. Very susceptible to clogging up and having some problems and issues, and some codes on the front end as well. So while we got it in, and we got an expert like you, why don't you tear into that and show them what it's worth? I'll set up a demo.
All right, you got it, John. Thanks. By the way, I know I said Nissan. It's an Infiniti, but of course Nissan makes it. To get to the VVT cover here, we'll take off this reservoir. This is a coolant reservoir for the radiator. And once we get this off, we'll be able to get into the cover here to get to the VVT. And I think John and Josh are ready over there to tell you how all this works.
Here at Tech Garage, we are all about technology, especially with the teaching tools. So take a look at this. We have a Hall effect sensor down here, crank in a cam position. Now a little bit different. If you look down here, you got these little shutter wheels. That just cuts a signal, a digital signal on and off. This one really does the same thing up here. This is what Dave's dealing with. You actually have the little sensor here. It goes and it cuts that voltage on and off as it spins around. But Tech Garage, oh boy. Swing! Behind door number 3, we have the demo of the century. This is a Hyundai. Josh, this is a teaching tool that we use to put faults in there so students have to go diagnose things. This is perfect for Tech Garage. So we can show a couple different types of sensors. This is an actual engine and the computer. Now these are the computer terminals. So what I want to show you is the 2 sensor signals first, and then we'll go ahead and disturb them and mess them up so you can check them at the house. Now our first one is a crank sensor. Now our crank sensor, Josh, help me with those 2 terminals.
Signal, okay, black, let's put that on ground 67. Yep, signal wire's gonna be 89.
And we looked that up right on the schematic. Those are the actual computer ones. This is gonna be an AC signal, so check this out. If you crank it up and hit auto there, you can see the AC signal going up and down. Positive, negative, positive, negative. That's awesome. Shut it off for a minute. Now, if you didn't have a crank signal, a lot of times your car wouldn't start, so don't disable it yet. Let's go ahead and crank it up and just show them. Got it running. Go ahead and take the crank signal out, open a wire, bam, the engine quits. Now, what you would want to do to check it at home is you can go back there, Josh, and you can disconnect the ignition system so it cranks and doesn't start. That's the deal. Now, if you turn it over right now, we'll put the signal back in. You just turn over your car, And you see that right there? Beautiful. That means you're getting a signal. Something else is the problem. If it flatlined, you have a problem. Now let's switch gears a bit. Plug that back in and we'll look at the actual cam signal that Dave's dealing with. This is really cool. This is a square wave signal. We go back to our schematic. What 2 terminals we got there, Mr. Josh?
Let's put the black ground on 86.
86 right over here. Got it?
All right, and this cam signal's on 87.
87. So we're going across that signal. This is going to be a little bit different. We're hoping to see a square wave when it on and off cuts it. All right, we hit auto there and we got a little hash going on. There it is, but that's fine. That's a little ground, but you can see it's on, off, on, off, on, off. That's really, really cool. Go ahead and shut it off. If you were cranking and did not have that signal, that's our problem with our Infinity. It's kicking that code. It's not doing that perfect fuel mixture. Josh, this is some high-tech stuff, brother.
Pretty high tech, but I have a little trick we can do in the driveway to make it pretty simple and see if we're not getting a signal.
I'll tell you what, I want to see it. And you guys stick around too. When we come back with more Tech Garage, Josh is going to show you some driveway tricks to keep your car running in tip-top shape.
Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by Custom Auto Sound, the originator of classic car OEM fit radios since 1977. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. John and Dave are over on the Infinity, but first I got a promise I need to fulfill. I told you I was going to show you how to check a cam sensor right in your driveway. All you need to do is check your service manual, get a schematic, and make sure you back probe the correct terminals. Leave it plugged in to your cam sensor. Remove it from the block and turn the key on, and you should have a voltage reading on your DVOM. Right now it's there, but if you pass a magnetic piece of material in front of it, such as a socket, the voltage will actually go away. Move it away, the voltage comes back, go back in front of it, it goes away. What that does is that lets you know the computer is getting a signal from the cam sensor. That's actually what John and Dave are dealing with. Let's check in with them.
Well, gentlemen, we got the new cam sensor in there, and this is the one we took off of it. John, I went online and found a chart that's going to show us how to inspect this. And we're looking for continuity, basically, is what it comes down to.
There you go. That's basically the thing, what's happening. You saw where Josh actually waved the metal in front of it and caused the signal. That was heavy. You can just simply go across it. Pretty cool. You go to ohms of resistance. Got it. If you go to ohms of resistance, what the chart's looking for is it's looking for some kind of continuity between all the terminals. So you'd have to go to every one of them. But we did this a little earlier. In our case, I come in here and I touch the terminals. And when I touch 2 of them, I got continuity.
There you go.
You don't want 0 or OL, but I touched the outer 2. I have OL in both of those. So Dave, right off the bat, we know without doing any further tests, there's an open in here, and that's causing that code, that's for sure.
And that is definitely where our problem is.
Yeah, now, even more important, that's pretty cool. While you had it apart, man, you got this high tech. What'd you have to do to get that cover off?
Well, when we last left you here, I was taking off the tank on the front. This is the reservoir for the radiator. Next, that exposed the cover here for the VVT unit here. There were 8 bolts. If you can't hear, there were 7 because I lost one down below, but we'll find that. It's on a cover.
I think 7 will hold it.
Yeah, that's right. It could possibly go wrong, right? And once I got the bolts off, then that revealed, oh, actually there were 2 connectors as well for the wires, one on top and one on the bottom. And once I got it open, this is what we found here. Now, here's the solenoid. From here, the oil's injected right into the front of the cam phaser there, John.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool. And if you look on the exhaust, that's even cooler. You actually have a magnetic here on the exhaust, a magnetic piece that locks it, moves it, adjusts it. That right there will hold the exhaust. But this intake is oil driven, and you can see it right here. This is pretty cool. If I turn this to the right or to the left, you can see that the actual camshaft's moving and the phaser is not. So we can change that with the timing or the timing chain or belt, whatever, to get the timing chain to move. But even cooler, what Dave was saying, if I take this off on the inside, that solenoid is injecting fluid into this unit, and inside of that phaser are these little wiper arms here. And these little wiper arms, you can see them right there, the little white things, they're going to shift to the left and to the right. And what's happening is oil pressure is driving that one direction. We vent and we drive it in the other direction. So I'm moving the timing, yet the camshaft's sitting still. Now, if these crud up or you don't have the oil pressure or the solenoid's not working, the whole unit's not going to work. And that cam sensor is going to go, hey, man, we have an issue right there if that's not enough parts.
Talk about the solenoid not working. Here, I took the screw out here, and you can
Awesome.
see what this thing looks like. This is such a cool piece of technology.
There you go. Now my solenoid right here, these are the tiny little screens. Now the oil has to pass through there, so think about that. First of all, I want to get some cleaner and clean all those, make sure the oil's passing through it. Second, it has to move. It has to move back and forth to allow the oil to inject in there. And Power Probe hooked us up with this cool Power Probe, so if you hold that for a second, let me grab this, and we'll go to the power side, and we'll go to the ground side. All right, we're going to simulate the computer actually moving this. All right, if I can touch it on there, there it goes.
Wow, look
now
at
you
that.
guys look at that. So that's out, engaged, bam, released. Out, engaged, boom, released. That's going to stop and allow that oil flow to go into that phaser. Once it goes into the phaser adjusted, the cam sensor has to tell it where it's at. Man, what could go wrong?
Is that all that happens in there? That is incredible.
There's a lot going on in there, but you know, it's just a matter of cleaning that up, a couple of driveway tests. Those codes are all interrelated. You said earlier that how it precisely measures that fuel, that's the key. So RockAuto.com hooked us up with the new solenoid. We might as well put this in, and then it's all about what, Dave?
It's cracked open, and it's all about putting it back together in the reverse order.
Man, that's all. Follow your torque specifications. We'll have to clear the codes, take it on a test drive. Voila, another one solved.
You got it. We'll be right back with more Tech Garage from RockAuto.com, and you'll want to stay tuned because we've got more of Keep It or Crush It.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, last week we talked about AC fundamentals on the garage, Ed, so it only makes sense to turn our attention to the AC cycle. And you know, only on Tech Garage we have the coolest demos on the planet, a full functioning AC system. You're gonna love this one. But Josh, the cycle, where does it all start?
It all starts right here at the compressor. Now the compressor only deals with gas. So what goes into the compressor is a low pressure gas, and it comes out as a high pressure gas.
Cool, and then it sends it over to the condenser, which is located on the front of your car right here. This is the condenser, and that's actually taking that high pressure hot gas into it. And think about your mirror at the house. You know, when you actually take a shower and that's all a steam or a gas going down, and then it condenses and turns into a liquid? Well, that's what's happening here. It's going from a gas to a liquid, and we had to get it hot because we had to take that refrigerant, that heat, and boom, throw it off the car.
Right, it only goes from high heat to less heat. So we had to raise the pressure, raise the temperature, that way we could get it to the outside air.
Speaking of that, we move over to your next component. What's down the line?
After it leaves the condenser, it comes over to our restriction. In our case, we have a thermostatic expansion valve, or TXV for short.
Yeah, and you know, you can have a couple different types of systems. You can take a look at the graphic right there. We can have an orifice tube, and Josh, that's pretty cool. It's a fixed restriction. You got an analogy for that?
Yeah, the way I like to think of it is you have a water hose that you put a kink in. You have a high pressure on one side, it's kind of trickling out. You have a low pressure on the other side. The same thing's going on in our air conditioning system, but in our case, our restriction creates high pressure on one side, which is hot, and low pressure on the other side, which is cold, which is what we need to get to our evaporator.
Ooh, changing temperatures, exactly right. And we have our TXV right there. So you could have two types of systems. Now, we did that for a reason, because we wanted that refrigerant really, really cold, because we're coming into right here now, which in this area is called a evaporator. And that's about 32 degrees of that refrigerant. Why? Because the inside of the car is 70, 80 degrees. Refrigerant that actually heat's gonna jump onto it right there on that evaporator, and it's gonna take a ride, change states, mind you, from a liquid now back to a gas, and it's going to return to the compressor, and it's going to start all over again. But Josh, you got a couple of tips you can do. We can start at the compressor, and you can actually feel it when it's running. So it's coming out of that compressor, it should be hot, correct?
Right, so if pressure increases, temperature increases. Pressure decreases, temperature decreases. So
Fire this thing up and let's see it actually work in action. This is pretty cool. So you can get it running, man. This is fully running AC system. Check this out. Now you should be able to feel those lines. You should feel a difference, right?
right, so if your compressor's working like it should, you should have a hot coming out. And in our case, we do. High pressure gas equals hot gas.
Awesome. So it got it nice and hot, ran it over to the condenser, went in here hot, changed state. So we're going to have a little temperature change here from going in to going out. Not too much, maybe 20 or so degrees. Then it goes to our big change. Let's explain that.
Right over here, back to our restriction, our TXV. You can see right here we have a hot liquid coming in here because it's a high pressure liquid. Then we have our restriction. Once it comes out, it changes to a cold liquid, all because of that pressure difference.
There it is. Then it takes that cold liquid over to the actual evaporator, and those lines, if I touch those lines, there's a little temperature difference because the heat's jumping on from the outside and then it's running over here, and that's how it's actually running that AC system. So once again, that car's taking the heat from inside the cab and throwing it outside. Josh, shut it off for a minute. We actually got an email question. You guys need to send yours in to feedback@techgarage.com. This is Philip from Flagstaff, Arizona, man. Well, first of all, Philip, you better get out of Arizona. It's pretty hot. But he's got an Impala, Josh. It stops blowing cold once in a while. We call that an intermittent problem. He's not a tech, but you know, he's worked on cars, so maybe some tips, Josh, you can look for right off the bat.
Yeah, first thing I would do when it's not operating as it should, I would look at my compressor, see if the thing's engaged, see if it's even running.
So you guys need to stick with us, just like Philip, because we're going to have all the diagnostics you need to keep your air conditioning system in tip-top shape. In future episodes, we're going to talk about gauge readings and all the components. But right now, we got to take a short break, but don't go far because it's the Keep It or Crush It segment next. We'll be back with more Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com.
Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com is brought to you by AP Laser, leading the way. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Well, welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, and our segment called Keep It or
Crush It.
That's right, and this time we're talking about a 2007 Nissan Quest. But before we jump into this, Josh, let's review a little bit. You know, we went to get this vehicle. When we get this vehicle, we had cash in our hand, and that made a big difference, Josh, because what happened?
Well, they wanted $1,200 for it, but we had $1,000 on us, so we said, hey, we'll give you $1,000 for it, and they took it.
There you go, and well, where's the other 200?
You only gave me $1,000.
Yeah, right. We also went ahead, we just take a couple of looks at it. Well, I like to bring a scan tool, that's important. RockAuto.com has these pocket scanners. You just plug it in. Now they could erase the codes and stuff, but this will give you a general idea of what's going on. We're gonna do a detailed inspection in the shop and get into it mechanically, but it's a good idea to see if you have any major issues or codes that perhaps are gonna cost you a lot of money. Last but not least, make sure you bring your Magic Creeper, man. We go under all of these vehicles, just take a glance under there, not a major inspection, but you don't want to see anything pouring out or any kind of problems. Josh, you drove it here. Tell me what'd you find. What do you think about it?
First thing I noticed was it's a little dirty inside. You can tell it's definitely a family vehicle. Got some stickers on the windows, but the most concerning thing is I noticed a puddle of water, and also inside when I was going through it, there's a water jug.
Yeah.
So on the way here, it got a little hot, and I put some of the water that they had provided for me, and it definitely it poured out the front of the radiator. So I know Rock Auto carries radiators, and so it's not quite a crush it yet, so I'm hoping we can salvage it and keep it.
Yeah, and that's a dead giveaway. You look at this, it's probably not drinking water, and a lot of it's gone, so they've been adding water here and there. We could get into head gaskets, we could get into major catastrophic damage, but we'll do the inspection in the shop. I feel like it's a keeper as well. Do that good vehicle inspection out there, right in the parking lot, whether it's 100 degrees or not, because you don't want to end up with a wolf in sheep's clothing. I don't even know why Dave has this in his dressing room, but we need to go see what they're doing at the RockAuto.com desk. Here you go.
Give it to my kids.
Thanks a lot, John. Tom, we're talking keep it or crush it here. So with this van, and with vans these days, as we mentioned, they're so expensive to buy a new van, even a used car. They're super expensive. So it'll behoove a lot of folks to hold on to the vehicle they have and make those fixes. How much can Rock Auto help save on costs?
Save a lot. I mean, you're completely right. Sometimes getting the leather seat option on a new car, you can buy a used car for that cost, and you got a vehicle instead of leather seats. Just the basic maintenance parts, you get the vehicle so it's reliable and safe, be on the road, you know, under $500 for a lot of vehicles. A lot of the repairs you can do yourself, the the old story that these new cars are too high tech, you can't work on them. That wasn't true when my grandfather told me in the 70s. It's still not true that a lot of the parts are actually easier to replace. They just plug in versus more mechanical, complex wrenching. In our catalog, we have info pages that often provide manufacturer repair tips from our site or YouTube, where you can see, oh, okay, this is some things you need to think about when you're doing the diagnosis, when you're doing the repair. And whether you do it yourself or you hire a professional to do it, it's good to get the background knowledge so you know, okay, this is what the part looks like, this is how much it costs, and this is what labor's involved.
Rock Auto has all the parts your car will ever need. It can help you save a whole lot of money, and with the instructional videos, it can make it a whole lot less intimidating as well.
Oh, we cleared the codes, took it on a test drive, rescanned it, and no codes. Our Infiniti is fixed. I know we had a great time today. I hope you guys did as well. Boy, packed with technology. That trainer on that AC system, that was awesome. Garage Ed. Josh, I know you're a little partial to that van.
Yeah, I'm liking the van. Hopefully we'll keep it. Right now we're there, but let's go next week, check it out, and we'll see what happens.
Good idea. And you, Mr. Technology, technology, technology.
Oh my goodness, this Infiniti is loaded with it. You know, variable valve timing has been around for over 100 years, but it's never been more sophisticated than this.
Yeah, it was the coolest demo on the planet. You guys, we're out of time for today, but make sure you check us out on social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. I know all of them. We're there.